Hello friends, in this session I will be talking about friend assemblies with C#. Actually, friend keyword is used with Visual Basic.NET, which is equivalent of internal keyword, which is widely used in C#.NET applications. Internal keyword is a very important keyword which is in the category of access specifiers or access modifiers, just like private, public, protected internal. Most of the time people use public and they take a lot of freedom in using public without knowing the scope of their classes. In real world scenarios, I have seen many times many organizations discourage the usage of public keyword very freely, and they want to restrict their classes to minimum possible scope as and when possible. Now let's assume you are working on a project where you need to access your classes within the project. In that scenario, what happens if that project or solution consists of multiple projects and one assembly of project A needs to be used by an assembly of project B? Now the boundary of internal cannot be crossed because you are going to communicate across the borders, across the boundaries of assemblies, and that's why we have public keyword. The issue comes if I freely make any assembly, especially a DLL, and I make that class as public and all the members inside that are public. Now the threat to that assembly is that anybody who got access to it can freely access the contents of that particular assembly, which is not a very safe way of programming and not a very healthy way of doing proper coding in C#, especially when you are creating internal projects which could be threat to outside world if people access it, and they can misuse the code which you have inside that. Now, as I have spoken before in another video through my channel on YouTube, my channel is youtube.com/MyPassionFor.NET. On that, I have mentioned that by default a class access specifier or a class's scope is internal. So here, just like a best coding practice, I am going to specifically call it out that my class is internal. Similarly, by default a member in a class by nature and by default is private, and since my class is internal, so I'm going to promote my private members to internal as well, because I foresee a need that this math library assembly will be used by another assembly within the same solution. Now I did that, and now let's build this math library project right here. It builds successfully. So basically I have one assembly. The assembly name is mathlibrary.dll, and I am going to consume it in another project, means in a totally separate assembly outside. So I am going to my consume math project here, and I'm going to program.cs. Here I'm going to add a reference. So in consume math I am adding reference to math library, and as you can see I already have a math library project available under solution. So I click OK, and now the reference is added here, as you can see. So here is the reference added to math library. Now I come to my code, and here I am saying using. As you can see, here is math library is becoming available dot, and I add it. Here I start creating object. As you see, nothing is visible to you. Why is that? Why nothing is becoming available on IntelliSense? The very reason to that is we have used internal keyword in math class. See here, we used internal right here. That means it is accessible within math library.dll. You cannot access it outside. But due to limit the access of our code to outside world, we do not want to make it public. If we make it public, whoever get access to it will be able to call functionality from the math class. So our business need is to keep it as safe and secure and within the boundary of the organizations as possible. Now, there is a business case right now. To solve such problem, we need to have a friend assembly. Now, how do we do that? If you want to make internals visible outside the assembly, there is a way to do it, and we call that friend assembly. Now, in that case, the key is that you have to add one attribute and one namespace to the source assembly, which you want to be visible outside. So I want my math library to be visible outside, but you have to be very specific to whom you want it to be seen. In our case, we want it to be seen by consume math. So consume math is my assembly name, which I want to be able to see the functionality written inside an internal assembly of math library.dll. So how do we do that? You need to go to your source assembly and you need to add these two lines here. You need to add a using statement, which is system.runtime.compiler-services, and you need to add an attribute assembly internals visible to consume math. So the two additions I did are on line number 2 and line number 4. Once you are done with this, you save it and you have to rebuild it. Now, once it is building successfully, you can go back to your target where you are going to consume it. And now, if you put dot here, as you can see, you are able to see math class. You consume it, you say obj equal to new math class. And here you can see some method. To this I am passing two numbers. And let me wrap this call in console.writeLine. And this is all good. Now my consume math is the startup project. So I save it. I make sure it builds successfully. I am building it. And then I am running it. As you can see here, the output 25 is coming because I am able to access one internal member from an assembly, and we did it by using friend assemblies. Now let me show you what happens if there is no such attribute like assembly. If we are not doing that and somebody still tries to access, then what will happen? Let me give you a real quick version of that. So I go to program.cs and let's build this consume math. As you can see here, the issue right now which is coming related to access. So see here, math library.math class is inaccessible due to its protection level. So this is the error which you are getting, and this error is a very accurate error, the precise error, because internals cannot be accessed outside the assembly. By nature, by definition, an internal access modifier can only be accessed within the assembly, not outside. So you cannot access it. I have worked on some projects where within the organization, within the team, you have a situation where you want to use internals assembly within the team projects in those scenarios you can easily use friend assemblies. The restriction of using friend assembly is if assembly A is having a strong name, the consuming assembly B also needs to have a strong name. That is one. Number two is, what if I want my math class to be accessible to multiple assemblies? Means consume math 2, consume math 3. Let's say there are n number of assemblies or a variety of assemblies which I want to be accessible through friend assemblies. Now that is easy. You just have to add multiple assembly internals visible to attribute just like this, and you have to pass their exact names. So once those names are met, you can access those assemblies. Now let me remove these and let me show you that once I uncomment that and I rebuild the solution, these errors are gone because I have removed it. Now protection issues are resolved because we are sharing the attribute internals visible to with the assembly name. And let's rerun the application one more time to make sure that result is there. And as you can see, it is returning you 25 because assembly is again visible. Though it is internal, but it is becoming visible because we made it friend to a consuming assembly. So hope you enjoyed this video. This is a very important concept and we call it friend assemblies. Thank you very much for watching.